Hello, everybody, and welcome to Droids Are Welcome Here, the fun Star Wars podcast where everyone, including those pesky droids, are welcome. Today we are joined by our good friend Ash, and we're going to be reviewing episode 2 of Andor Season 2, Sagrona Teema. Ash, thank you for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Or I should say, this is Mon Mothma who is with us, not Ash. And it's very fitting that you got this episode because it is literally the Mon Mothma episode,
It
basically.
is so much Mon Mothma in this episode.
I have to ask, how are you feeling about all of this Mon Mothma love we're seeing?
I love it. At the same time, I could do without some of the takes that I've been seeing because I'm like, ugh. The urge to just be so mean on the internet and be like, crack a book,
It's like Mon
maybe
Mothma
crack
would
a
not
book.
approve of this.
I'm like, no, honey, read read Aftermath, read The Princess and the Scoundrel, read The Mask of Fear. Actually read The Mask of Fear this time. Don't just tell me that you read it when you missed a very important plot point about Mon Mothma.
That is next on. There's like 3 books into my list. I just snagged a copy of it and I can't wait.
It's so good.
Since we're talking
I
books, though, I'm gonna give a shout out to a little book that just came out. Anyone who's familiar with the Bombad cast will know Scotty J. wrote, one of probably the kindest people on Star Wars social media, and he just wrote a little book about midichlorians. So please go check it out.
we love midichlorians. Hey, I'm a
Midichlorians are
prequels kid.
the midichlorians are the powerhouse of the cell.
I'm pretty sure at one point during a science test when I forgot what the word mitochondria, I wrote midichlorian. And
I hope they gave you points for that.
and the thing was, I think my teacher did mark it correctly. And I
They
was
have
like,
passed.
this doesn't give me a lot of hope in your teaching, but I'm glad that you're also a Star Wars fan.
It's like you passed. You passed the check. But before we can
Yeah,
get to Mon Mothma, we got to
yeah.
start with the beginning of the episode, where we see poor Cassian is literally he's tied up with basically cables and wires inside of the transport that he was supposed to be escaping on. He's not having a good day,
Nope.
and like he,
Cassian and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. That's the full name of this show. Tony cut it down to Andor.
and you've got this group of rebels, which they really don't know what they're doing. My impression is that it's probably a ragtag group that's more or less this is probably their first mission out. They've lost their commander, and now they've just basically gone full on Lord of the Flies in space on Yavin
Yeah,
4, apparently, which is fantastic.
yeah.
But they basically gone full on Lord of the Flies. None of them really know what they're doing, and Andor, poor Cass, is literally just very subtly trying to give them tips of like maybe if you guys did this and maybe you should do this because it would be good for our safety. He's kind of just showing his latent leadership traits that he hasn't really
Yeah,
developed yet.
yeah. Which I thought was hilarious because they were like adamantly like not listening to him. They were doing the exact opposite, and it's just like it was giving the vibe of they're kind of behaving like children because in the absence of their leader they don't have that guidance. Whereas like in the absence of some other rebel leaders, you'll have people who are able to step up, right? In the absence of Saw, we see like later on down the road that his followers are able to step into that leadership role in order to keep the dream alive. But I guess in Maya Pei's brigade, that's not really a thing. They haven't planned for this.
Yeah, they're just kind of like, all right, we had one plan. The plan failed. What do we do next? Let's rock,
Yeah,
paper, scissors for it.
let's rock paper scissors this
Which,
bitch.
I mean, we're just going to solve everything now with space rock, paper, scissors. That is going
Truly,
to be the new thing.
truly. Someone on social media was like, "We need a guidebook on how to do this," and I
Yeah,
was like, "I nominate Kelly Knox."
I was just going to say that, yep, there is one person who can do this. She already gives us all of the crafts, so you know what?
Exactly.
Let's just combine crafting
Yeah.
Twitter
Yeah.
with like gaming Twitter, and we're just gonna make space rock paper scissors. So now these guys are trying to, they're skulking around each other. They're
Hmm.
crawling through the muck. They're trying to see, what are these other people doing? And now they can't find the body that's on the ground. The
Yeah.
body is gone. And one of them just finds a severed foot,
Oh.
which I'd probably react the same way with horror
Yeah.
when running. I don't think there's
Yeah.
really a good way to respond to that.
No, yeah.
But we find out that now there are perhaps some creatures in the trees
Yeah.
that we don't know about.
Yeah, which kind of fits for Yavin 4 because it is a jungle planet and it's not inhabited by, a, a species that is sentient that we know of at this point in
Yeah,
time. But we also do know like its history and that there was some weird Sith stuff going on. I don't remember if that's canon. Um,
it is now. You know what? We're gonna
you
make
know
our own
what?
canon.
My whole thing with Legends and canon is that if there's nothing in canon that directly like changes or goes against what is Legends, I'm like Legends can still be like a thing,
I've kind
you
of just
know?
I've personally been treating it as basically a all right. We have two universes. These are running concurrently, but there's
Yeah.
crossovers
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
it's all just Star Wars.
exactly. At the end of the day, I'm like, it's whatever. I'm here for Mon Mothma mostly, and she exists in both things, so I'm fine.
And she's a badass in both.
She is such a badass, and I love her.
So then after they find this foot, they basically end up sparking a little blaster fight where they're just firing back and forth, not really aiming. They're kind of just spraying
Yeah,
randomly into the trees. And Cassian is just trying to tell them, like, hey, maybe you guys should actually, save some water, like it's not going to rain forever. Like,
yeah.
maybe come on, guys. And they're just like, what does he know? What
He
does this
knows how to
Imperial test
survive.
pilot know?
The
It's actually
mark of a
just.
truly good spy. Nobody believed that he was just a spy. They were like, you're obviously what you're pretending to be.
You're obviously an Imperial test pilot who came to Yavin 4 to find this ragtag group and kill them.
Yeah,
And I feel like there's a couple
apparently.
times where he probably did want to actually just shoot them.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I
I think we all kind of wanted that a
I
little
was
bit.
like, Jesus Christ. I was like, Cassian, you poor thing. If I was Cassian, I'd go back to Luthen and be like, I want double for that mission. I want double.
So then we leave Cassian, who is just looking bewildered at how unprepared these people are, and we cut over to Coruscant, where we see now
Mhm,
Dedra and Partagaz.
mhm.
It turns out Dedra maybe doesn't really want to be involved with subjugating and strip mining an entire planet.
Yeah, it's nice to see if she's got some morals, I guess, you know.
Now, is it going to be that she has some history with Gorman? Is she from Gorman? Or I don't know.
I mean, God, okay, this is kind of a spoiler for episode 3, but like we do find out that there's another character who is half Gorman, so she might be, right? Because I feel like, we're probably gonna get a lot of more like confirmed characters who have like some Gorman heritage. And it's because it's important to A, their characters and B to the plot as well. Um, yeah, I'm absolutely terrified for what's going to come next week for Gorman as a whole. As somebody who knows a lot about um, like propaganda and imperial propaganda and the way that empires run things, I foresee a lot of historical parallels next week.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm loving the fact that like Tony Gilroy is not afraid to do those
Mm-hmm.
hard-hitting moments. He's not afraid to dive in with the real world parallels.
Mm-hmm.
He's not allowed to showcase the okay, this is what fascism looks like, guys. This
Mm-hmm.
is why it's bad. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I love it. I think that's
Yeah.
something that we need.
And he understands like the weight of it. He doesn't make light of it. He's like, when I show you this, this is important and it's meant to make you uncomfortable because y'all as a society, like us as a society, have become too desensitized to violence and propaganda and various other things that it's just like, no, we need to be reminded of these realities, I think. And that's not true for everybody, but I think for a lot of people it is.
That's why I really loved how he showed like in to backtrack into the first episode when you have that
Mm-hmm.
meeting of these various imperial
Mm-hmm.
leaders of various departments, and you have the propaganda guys who are just openly being like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we can spin this however we want.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna go so good. We're gonna just do this. We're gonna take this planet, and then they can't stop us. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like just like a slap of like, okay, this is what the Empire really is. Like,
Yeah.
you can glorify aspects of it all you want, but at its core, this is what it is. It is
Yeah.
just, fascists doing what they
And
want.
yeah, I remember being at Celebration watching the first episode and that part was in it. And it was like most of the things that you think about Gorman are because we put them there or something along those lines. And that chilled me to my core because I was like, oh, you know, because if I remember correctly, you're also Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like we are like geographically very close to the United States, and the United States has a very strong propaganda machine. And it's like, you know, I had to confront the reality that growing up, I saw a lot of propaganda, and a lot of the things that I knew about other countries were because of that propaganda and like other groups of people. And I was like,
Yeah.
so having that hit me again, I was like, oh, this is not going to be like this is going to be very, very difficult to watch and go through. And I saw someone say on social media, they were like, the propaganda posters that were prevalent in Germany in the 30s, where Jewish people specifically were depicted with very like rat-like features. We're probably going to see a lot of propaganda where it paints the Gormans as being very spider-like
Hmm.
and, as an extension, untrustworthy because Krennic literally brings that up.
I
He's like, isn't
was
it interesting that like the Gorman personality like so matches the spider? And I'm like, uh,
I was just about to say that, yeah, how he like literally he not even like so much overtly, but he just very subconsciously is like, maybe they're like these spiders, maybe they're not that good. And it's not even, he's putting that thought out there and letting his intended, audience's propaganda just form their own negative opinions of it.
yeah.
And it's like, it's such a simple line.
Hmm.
It's what we wanted you to believe, but it's so powerful.
Hmm. And then we can go into the whole thing about like how the empire is going to use, the propaganda and the way that they're going to shift the tides against the people of Gorman to manufacture consent for the massacre. Because they do that consistently.
I'm really
They,
wondering if they're going to go parallel with Legends and have it be like like the Emperor's shuttle landing on protesters, or if they're going to
yeah,
go something different. I have a feeling we're
yeah,
probably going to find that out in the probably next week because it'll be another 3 episode arc.
yeah. Because I know that they said that they were doing 5 episodes, and in talking about it, I was like, yeah, the massacre is not going to happen overnight. Like these things have a lot of buildup, and you know, a lot goes into essentially an atrocity like this. Like it is planned. So it's like, yeah, the actual like event itself, but we also need to see the buildup and we need to see the fallout of it. And we know one of the things that comes in that fallout, it's Mon leaving the Senate, um, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm
I
ready
think
for it
we're
to happen.
I think we're going to get an absolutely epic speech on par with Marva from the first season, and I really hope that they. I hope she drops an F bomb in the Senate and just be like, you know what, fuck you. I would absolutely die if she was the one graced with that honor. I don't think anyone deserves that more.
Agreed. Agreed. Because, like, she's been going through this for decades at this point. She's been dealing with Palpatine basically since she was like 16 years old, since she first became a senator, which was around the time of the Naboo crisis and Palpatine taking power. And just the amount of BS that she has heard from this man is astounding. And it's about time that she was allowed to curse at him.
It's like she's just done with this. So we've
Yeah.
got Dedra and Partagaz on Coruscant. And Dedra's explaining that,
Hmm.
she doesn't want to be a part of this mission. And Partagaz basically tells her flat out, you don't have a choice.
Hmm.
This is good for you, but it's very
Hmm.
much you're going to do this. This is not
Hmm.
negotiable. You don't have a say in this.
Hmm.
And if you trying to avoid it, it's not going to go well for you. It's kind of the
Yeah.
subtle undertone I was picking
Hmm.
up.
And also, like, there's nothing that he can do about it either. Because he's like, oh, like, it's so refreshing to, like, learn our real place in the chain of command or something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're powerless here too. Ugh, that's not a good sign for Dedra. Because Party Guys is very much an ally to her, right? He pushed her a lot in the first season, but he also listened to her. And now he's like, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it's basically this is
Hmm.
bad now, but if you play your cards right, this could be good for your future.
Hmm.
So we leave them behind. We head back to Chandrila, which I am still in awe at how beautiful Shangri-La is in this. It is
It's so gorgeous.
the architecture, the way I was describing the architecture, it's almost like a it's almost like reminiscent of Naboo, but like with a more modern-esque
Hmm.
appearance to it, and I'm here for
I just, oh, that's my favorite planet in the entire Star
it.
Wars galaxy. And I was like, logically, we have to see it in Andor season two. Genevieve confirms it. I cried. I cried so hard. She's like, we start with Mon on Chandrila, and I was like, sobbing.
You're just like, yep, that's it.
I was like,
That's it. It's done.
that's my life made. That's all I've
It's like we can
wanted.
cancel Star Wars now. We got Shangri-La on screen. That's it. And just and
Exactly.
call it here. It's not better than this.
Yeah. I'm like, I've been waiting for this moment. And then it was just so beautiful and wonderful to see because, you know, it it blew me away with the way that I pictured some of it in my head. Admittedly, I pictured more like Hannah City in my head, but oh my gosh, the mountains. Was in awe, and I loved in the first episode the camera tracking when she's going around the estate. I was like, I want to see all of it. I need to go there.
So my my first thought when I think of like oh see what Shangri-La before this was from like the original Nintendo 64, the X-Wing Rogue Squadron game, and it's
Yeah,
like no, Shangri-La is not just a collection of like 12 buildings in a city are surrounded by like Imperial guns.
yeah,
It's a lot more than that. So you've got Luthen and his assistant, whose name I'm absolutely forgetting,
Playa.
Clay, yeah, and she's basically explained to him that like basically chill out. I cannot get you an update because I do not have access to my equipment.
Yeah,
You can tell that he's plotting something and he's getting anxious about it.
yeah.
And he's also very concerned with where Cassian is. Why haven't we
Hmm.
heard from him?
Hmm. I feel like part of it's like genuine concern. Another part of it is he still doesn't quite trust Cassian.
It's like at the end of the
You
day,
know.
Cassian knows enough that he could stab him in the back if he wanted to.
Yeah.
He's sticking his neck out a lot further than he normally would.
Oh yeah.
So we continue forward. We get to see Perrin and Mon have not so great a conversation.
It's an
Um,
awkward conversation.
I'm surprised that she didn't, slap him.
I would have.
Yeah, and he would have had that coming. But it's not exactly the most comfortable conversation for her, and you almost get the sense that maybe she's not as in control of all of these various scenarios as she would like to be.
Yeah.
She doesn't like being the observer. She doesn't like,
Hmm.
being unsure about what's. She likes being able to look ahead and see, okay, here's where we are. This is where we're going to end up. She doesn't like when
Hmm.
that's a mystery.
Yeah. Which makes sense when you consider the type of person that she is and like her career and everything else that goes into it. And like, you know, again, Perrin once again bringing up the idea of Mon being unfaithful to him. Admittedly, I'm a Monte shipper through and through. I have my own thoughts, but at the same time, like I hope like I don't think he knows that he's actually helping her by believing that she's having an affair.
Yeah.
Because it is sadly a trend that has emerged with Mon is the fake affair. Um, and the Empire always falls for it every time she's like, well, I'm having an affair. Because then they're like, oh, that's uncomfortable and I want to stop asking questions. I'm going to ask a few more questions just to make sure that you're not lying to me, even though you're still going to be lying to me because you're not going to give me very many details, which is nice because I don't want to know the details. But
if the
this is
cliche
just
if the cliche works.
exactly right. And part of it is that, the Empire has been watching Mon and Perrin for longer than it's been an empire. And they know that this marriage is rocky at best. And so,
Well,
even those
she's
moments where they care for each other, it comes off as time goes on slightly more performative. Like season one, I was like, okay, occasionally he'll call her darling or whatever. It felt even more forced in season two
it almost
when they
felt
were around everyone on Shangri-La.
it almost felt more detached and clinical than anything, like
Hmm.
an obligation as opposed to a desire. It's a marriage, like you said, it's a marriage of convenience. This
Hmm.
is based on ancient customs. This is what we're expected to do.
Yeah.
And she wants to break that cycle, but she doesn't have a choice now because she needed his
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. And,
And if she
you
backs
know,
out now, everything comes crumbling
hmm
down.
and at this point, like, if Perrin is still alive when she flees, he probably won't survive very long afterwards. And so I fear Perrin's days are numbered because while they may not love each other, they don't want to see the other one get brutally tortured
Yeah.
by the Empire. In the Mask of Fear, especially, like Perrin is slightly more protective of Mon, and I think part of that's because he doesn't know exactly what she went through, but he would know that she was detained by the Empire, and so he wants to keep her safe as he possibly can. But then she naturally pushes back against that because she's like, I don't need you looking out for me,
Yeah. It's like
right?
I'm a
Because
strong person. I don't need, I don't
exactly,
need you holding my hand.
exactly. And so like he pulls back, and the moments of him caring about her at all become less and less. And then we got to this point, and it's like, oh, delightful, wonderful.
So then we move on from beautiful, beautiful Shangri-La, and we end up in what I have dubbed Saskatchewan in space.
Saskatchewan in
That's
space.
exactly what it is. Just
That
wide
is
open
exactly
fields as
what it
far as
is.
you can see.
Truly.
Um, we're gonna rename it to Saskatchewan in space, and we will take no questions on it.
Truly. We're Canadian.
So
We can do what we want.
exactly, we find out that the Empire is well, they're launching some inspections. It's something that
Hmm.
hasn't happened in 10 years, and they're looking for the quote unquote illegals,
Yeah.
which unfortunately our Ferrex crew
Just so
are.
happen to be. Yep.
And again,
Gee.
kudos to Gilroy for like absolutely just going all in with this with the real world parallels and
Hmm.
trying to highlight, why this
Hmm.
is a bad thing.
Hmm. And like when you take into account when this was filmed, it was before all of these things started happening in the, well, kind of like
It's
before.
like
It was
he
already
he saw the writing on the wall.
exactly because he, again, like he knows history. He knows what fascism looks like. He knows the dangers of it. He knows where this rhetoric that has been pretty prevalent in America for over a decade, where all of that is leading if we allow people like this to be in power.
So I was actually
You know.
we haven't published it yet. We did an interview a month or two ago with Chris
Mm-hmm.
Kempshall about his Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire.
He's so
And
wonderful, isn't he?
oh, I absolutely adore that man.
He's the best.
He's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
But off camera we were talking. He's like, I'm an amateur historian with a particular focus on like post World War
Mm-hmm.
II conflict globally.
Yeah.
So like, I like tracking the patterns and seeing how
Mm-hmm.
humanity repeats itself. And we were joking about how like whenever someone asks like hey as a professional or amateur historian, what's your kind of take on what's going on right now in the world? And you just look at them like, do you want my honest answer here, or do you want me to give you a
Yeah.
comforting lie?
Mm-hmm.
So we're on Space Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Brasso is looking very nervous. Everyone is not very comfortable. And then we cut back away, back to Yavin 4, where this rebel group again is doing whatever they want, trying to eat the fruit that they find lying on the ground, which does not look all that appetizing.
Yeah.
And then we cut to, I think, one of my favorite monologues of this series so far, Cyril speaking
Yeah.
to a new recruit where he's telling him about how he tracked this theft of Imperial shipments through 4 sectors just because he noticed one number that was wrong. And there's a future for you here if you want it.
Yeah.
It's like so over dramatic, and I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like because that lie feels so perfectly crafted because we know we watched Cyril in season one and we know actually like how he got where he is. I feel as though because I think that Cyril at this point has taken over the Bureau of Standards. I think that was the second promotion that
I think so,
Dedra's
yeah.
talking about later on. Um, I think it's a lie that he and Dedra specifically crafted to, be like, oh, well, that's why he's in charge now. It's because he just did such a great job. And, you know, uh, of course, we learn a little bit more about all of this in the following episode, but it's also, I think, a way to pull Cyril away from specifically the influence of Edie, but also his uncle Harlow,
Yeah.
right?
Who is
Given
definitely going to be a plot point at some point in this. There's got to
he
be
has to
something
be.
involving him.
He has to be. Like for the longest time, I was like, oh, like until we learned, that he has a literal criminal record with the ISB, I was like, maybe it's Partagaz. Like, I don't know. Um, but then I was like, no, I don't think it's Partagaz. And then I was like, but who is it? And now I need to know who this Uncle Harlow is because he's shady as heck.
Now
And
watch. You know what? Just forget. We're gonna. It's just gonna be Hondo. Hondo is just gonna pop up, and it's just gonna be
Hanzo,
like Hondo is Uncle Harlow. I realize this isn't gonna happen, but this is now my headcanon. Uh,
it could happen.
so then we cut back to our lovely Ferrex crew,
Yeah.
and you find the Empire is now inspecting the area they're in, and they're
Mhm.
trying to find out who's supposed to be there and who isn't. And we see this. It's the best way I can put this without getting flagged on YouTube.
Mhm.
This absolute asshat of an Imperial officer.
Yeah,
That should be okay for YouTube terms of service.
I've heard
Um,
worse.
who is attempting to, what is the word I'm looking for here?
Coerce?
Coerce. Yes, thank you. I was trying to think of a strong enough word for this.
Yeah.
Um, her into a relationship, a tryst, which she has
Hmm.
clearly no interest in.
Hmm.
She's already gone through torture in season one.
Hmm.
She has no desire to go through that again with
Hmm.
another Imperial.
Yeah.
But this guy's just not taking the hint.
Yeah.
So she drops the my husband wouldn't approve line and he kind of backs off a little bit. And we hope it's going to be the last we see of him. And
Oh,
unfortunately, it is not.
yeah. Unfortunately. I mean, it's the last mistake he's ever gonna make.
Yeah.
Because Bix don't play. I love her. I love her. She can.
That was one of my favorite moments was him
He's
getting
a
what was coming to him.
dirtbag. May he rot.
He
He got what
agreed.
was coming. So Brasso comes in to her rescue. We
Hmm.
love Brasso.
We do.
And we cut back to the glorious mountains of Chandrila, which I would love to
Oh,
hike that.
same.
Where you see the awkward young couple who are hiking and both don't really know what they're supposed to be doing right now. They probably don't really know each other very well yet.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just that awkward moment of like, I see you once a year at like Thanksgiving, but like I don't really know you, but we're expected to
Yeah.
hang out now.
Um,
Poor
but
Lita.
yeah, I do think that the hike is very interesting in that because we're seeing this hike for Lita and Stecken, we see, and I bring up the weather because Mon brings up the weather. We see that it's like sunny and that the weather is like fairly nice. And then Vel's like, oh, when was the last time like this happened? And Mon's like me and Perrin, and it was raining. And I'm like, the difference in
The peril, just the subtle
yeah,
messaging of that. It's like
yeah.
the calm before the
Hmm.
storm.
Yeah, and it's like how maybe again, because it's like, the whole thing about like, oh, like if it's raining on your wedding day or whatever. And this is like, a 3-day wedding. So if it's raining on any of those days, that's kind of messed up. But like, I think it's meant to be like oh, Mon really didn't want that at the end of it all.
Yeah.
Right. Because again, she's like, these are the things that I wish my mother had said to me. She says those in the following episode. And we know that Mon and Lita are very different. We also know from season one that Mon did participate in these traditions. Because she says to Vel, like, we did it. And Vel's like, well, you did it. And I feel as though, having the, like, even like just mentioning the difference in the weather is very telling for the yet another difference between Mon and Lita, a bridge that she cannot cross because she just can't reach her daughter in the way that she wants to, you know. I mean, ultimately she does give Lita what Lita wanted for her wedding, but I fear Lita's gonna regret asking for that.
Yeah. I think Lita And I think Lita is kind of at that age where it's like she wants to rebel a little bit. She wants to strike
Hmm.
out and be her own person, but she
Yeah.
doesn't really have any idea what that really means in the grand
Hmm.
scheme.
Yeah.
All right, so now we have yet again left the beautiful mountains of Chantrula behind and gone back to this ragtag group of rebels who are now in the aftermath of their rock, paper, scissors match, attempting to physically turn a TIE Avenger to blast the transport full of their friends.
They're just stupid. It's just stupid.
And
I
Cassian, in his head, Cassian does the exact calculations of, well, this is how many centimeters, this is how small they're going to move each hour. So we have approximately this many hours before they're turned enough to hit us.
Yeah, which is insane to think about. I'm like, Cassian, this isn't the time for math, but this math was actually really helpful. Um, I still think it's hilarious how they just decided to be just once again rock paper scissors.
Yeah, we've literally just gone. I love the inspiration of like Lord of the Flies here. It's like literally
Yeah,
just okay. This is what happens when you take away all leadership and just throw a bunch of kids together.
yeah, pretty much. Like, I don't think we've ever seen anything like it in Star Wars, and it felt so real as
Yeah,
well.
it's like
Like so much of it.
we all like to think that
Yes,
if we're in this situation, yeah, I'm gonna be a
yeah,
badass rebel commander. I'm gonna take charge. No, this is exactly what we would all do. We would bicker
yeah,
and we would play rock paper scissors for a
yeah,
little bit. This is what we would
yeah.
do.
Yeah, it was very much like calling out like the leftist infighting and all of that. And I was like, thank you for that, Tony.
And yet again,
Because
Tony
it
Gilroy
sucks.
absolutely nailing it.
Yeah. It's very much like, God, I'm still in the back of my mind obsessing over the Hunger Games, but it's very much like, when you're busy fighting each other, you lose sight of who the real enemy is. Like you guys are all supposed to be united against the Empire, and now you're trying to kill each other. You're not doing a very good job. You're actually just doing the Empire's job for them. The more rebels that you take out,
It's
the
just
easier
less
the
for us.
Empire's
It's
job
just
is.
less.
It's it's just, and I hate that they don't see that because it's like,
That's
guys, it's so obvious. You should
um
know this.
I really hope that in this next arc, 'cause now we'll be 1 year ahead. I really hope we see an
Hmm.
update on them. Like, did they kill each other? Did they figure out what they were doing? Find out next time on Dragon
Yeah,
Ball Z. Then we come up to I'm gonna say like one of my two favorite scenes in this entire this arc.
yeah,
Dedra and Cyril are together and they have an apartment together on Coruscant.
yeah, which
And they're
is
just
weird.
both so monotone. They're just like we'll do this. We'll go do that thing eventually. We'll just do it another day.
The way that I likened it to them playing house, I have a lot of thoughts about that because I'm like, neither of them knows what they're doing, right? And it's obviously meant to like, because they're we learn later that they're nervous about Edie coming over. And I
Yeah.
feel like the second she walked in and saw them interact, she was like, damn, my son can't even live in sin correctly. Like he's bad at that too. Because, it's just too funny. And it's like, of course they're gonna be two awkward people. They've probably never been in this situation before, even come close to having like living with somebody else
Yeah.
that like in this way, right?
The
And the way
tism
it's
is
kind
the tism is very strong with both of them, and they
of
both
so real.
they both don't know how they're both trying to figure out how are we supposed to act in this situation, and they don't know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're
And
just making it up as they go.
it's so funny. It's so funny. And like, you know, I'm gonna be talking about this more in my review video, but I think that there's like a link between because we see Dedra listening to opera. We hear Dedra listening to opera, whatever. See and hear it. And we know that canonically Palpatine is a big fan of opera music, and I think that that might be some of the only music that she was ever exposed to. So it's some kind of like
Mhm.
comfort to her, you know?
I like that, and I noticed that also.
Yeah.
It's in trying to figure out, how is one supposed to act in this scenario?
Hmm.
Because obviously he grew up in a very fractured household,
Yeah.
where his mother was, the domineering matriarch.
Hmm.
And she, as we later find out, didn't have a family growing up because they were
Yeah.
criminals and they were arrested.
Hmm.
So they're both trying to overcompensate in their own way. And in trying to
Hmm.
overcompensate, they're falling back on what they've learned in their workplaces. For him, it's the
Hmm.
quiet, calm speech, it's the stepping away. And for her, it is the clinical approach to just
Hmm.
breaking down the scenario into a fight effectively. You know,
Yeah,
how do I overpower this?
I think it's very fascinating the way that they were able to make it all work and like piece it together with the two of them. Because when we left them on Ferrex at the end of season one, I was like, where is this going to go? No one could have
I
convinced
didn't
me.
expect this.
Nobody could have convinced me that these weirdo fascists were going to be playing house together on Coruscant. If Tony had told me that at any point in time, I'd be like, that's too weird, but it feels perfect. And Denise and Kyle are just phenomenal at what they do. And I feel like that's a really big part of it because they have really like such good chemistry that it's like, wow, you guys are so good at being weird together. Like I'm slightly uncomfortable watching this, but I'm having fun. Um,
It's like you're seeing a reflection of yourself of like, this is what I would do, and I don't know how I feel about seeing that on screen.
yeah, yeah,
So we cut away from the awkward starstruck lovers back to
yeah.
the glorious Chandrila, where we find out that
My
Take
baby.
has been maybe trying to tell Mon Mothma something, and he doesn't really want to say what it is, but he is in some sort of trouble here. He's got some business troubles, or he's got some pressure on him from someone higher up
Yeah,
than him. There is something that is coming to a head that he does not know how
yeah.
to handle, and he
Hmm.
is in full on fight or flight.
Yeah, and oh, God, I just as a huge K. Colmus fan, like I've loved him since I first saw him in episode 7 of season 1. I saw him and I was like, "Oh, you're the man that Mon deserves, truly." Hardcore shipper ever since. But then, like, it's just so interesting because I pointed out in my panel at Celebration that he, at this point, has asked for nothing from her, which could be considered suspect. And I fear I jinxed it. I fear Tony just remade the whole
He picked it
season
up. He
right
picked
after
up
I
on it.
told him that. Um, and yet, I think that a lot of it has to do with he doesn't have security of self at this moment. He's in a place that we've never seen him in before, right? Because we've never seen him at home on Chandrilla. And the way that Perrin talked about him before, he was like, "Oh, well, he was always weak." We see how other Chandrillan men probably perceive him, right? Because Tay in the first season was a guy who was very much like kind of at mom's beck and call, like, and very much just deferred to her
Yeah,
and wanted to make sure that she was happy.
it's almost like on
And
Coruscant, he's kind of more in his element. It's like
yeah,
this is his field, and at
yeah,
home he's just like he's falling apart.
yeah. And then you add into the whole fact that, I mean, we find out that he has a wife in episode 1, which was insane for me. Um,
You're just like
and I was stuck
no.
on that. I was like, what? And then he's like, oh, well, we were living apart at the moment. That's not what I came over here to tell you, though. Keep that in mind. Keep
It's
that in
like, hey,
mind
just
that
if you're free, but like
if you're
that's not what
free,
I
but
wanted to
like,
tell you something else, but just so
I
you
wanted to tell you something
know,
else. And so, like, he has done, like, at this point, a lot for the rebellion through helping Vaughn be able to secure the funding that the rebellion needs, right? And the way that he's like, it's actually rebel activity that caused all of this to blow up for me, right? The rebellion has hurt him at this point in time. He no longer has security for himself, probably less security for his family. And that's a terrifying position to be in. And, you know, Mon has told him little to nothing about what they're actually doing. And I think he just needs answers. If she can give him those answers, I don't think he would, you know, push her for anything else. He needs he needs to feel secure, which
yeah,
is a very human need to have. And it can take a lot away from you when you are in that fight or flight mode.
I think even to kind of build on that, I he wants to know that he has her trust, and right now he feels like
Mm-hmm.
he's in the dark about everything. It's
Yeah.
she came to you for help, but he doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
know. He didn't help her for the rebellion. He didn't help her for the cause. He helped her because he cares about Mon. not about
Hmm.
Senator Mothma, but about Mon Mothma, his friend.
Exactly.
And now
Exactly.
he's in this position where he's tens of millions of credits in the hole.
Hmm.
He's in the dark. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're going to bring him in or if he's just going to have an unfortunate accident.
I really hope not. Because because here's the thing, I want to care if Cinta and Luthen die, but if they kill Tay off screen as like a collaborative effort, I will find it much harder to care when they inevitably die.
They'll just be like,
Because
yes.
I'll be like, this is what you get for killing my dad. But it's like, again, here's the thing. I don't think that as opposed, because the way that they cut a lot of these things, we see Bix and Kroll, and then we see Mon and Tay, right? Position, obviously Bix has no power there. Mon has a level of power, like she's kind of equal with Tay. Tay would, I don't think he would ever hurt her because that's his like lifelong friend.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big issues with Mon and Tay in this arc specifically is that Lucen is watching them constantly. Like
Yeah.
Mon cannot have a conversation with Tay without Lucen immediately like sliding in and being like, "So what were you talking about?" And that's also not good because if you've got somebody that you're very close to and you have a conversation with them and then immediately they're talking to somebody else about your conversation, it's just like, okay, so what's going on here? Like, why am I not privy to all of this? And I also think that Davo is a huge problem here as well, because obviously he's been telling Tay some stuff. And obviously, like, he kind of would know a little bit more, given that he's probably spent a lot of time with Mon in recent months getting the planning for this wedding going. Meanwhile, Tay has been dealing with marital problems, and here he is at a wedding. Of course, he's going to freaking drink too much punch and have to be carried home. He doesn't want to be at this wedding,
So I think
much like
that
most of
is
the
very
characters.
fitting
He,
for him too. He's just
yeah,
like, you know what? I'm out. I'm having a drink.
real. Like, and also, I hate to bring it up. I feel like a lot of these characters have wedding related trauma. Like, with all of the arranged marriages, and I'm very much of the mind that you know, Mon and Tay would have rather be married to each other, but they were too similar that Mon's parents were like, we can't have two logic brained people working together in this marriage and trying to navigate her through the Senate because that's just not going to work. And it's going to be hell and no one is going to listen to her. So we need somebody who's got a little bit more of that right brain energy, like Perrin, to marry her so that when she can't get through to people, he can. And that's kind of explored a little bit in The Mask of Fear. But I like that. And that really solidified that for me. So I'm like, I fear that being at another wedding at the Mothma estate really pushed Tay over the edge because he's like, last time I was here, it was your wedding. And I didn't care for that shit at all. And I couldn't be drunk then, but I can be drunk now.
The whole time,
And
Tay's just like, oh yeah,
so
I'll cheers to that.
and he's just half a bottle of Tonneray in the hole already. And it's like you got here 5 minutes ago and he's like, I'm traumatized.
That man did some
Right.
pre-drinking.
He was pre-gaming.
That man was pre-gaming on the way in. He had a driver. He was pre-gaming all the way there. He's like,
he
I'm
was
ready for
pre
this.
he was pre-gaming the pre-gaming for the wedding because it was just 2 days of pre-gaming that wedding,
And I
and
feel like the
then
entire trip there, he was probably, as he's, pre-gaming, drinking on the way there, he's probably like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tell Mon how I feel. I'm gonna tell her. And then he's like,
he's faced with her and he's
no,
like, I
no.
can't do it. I can't do it.
So then we leave poor, poor drunken, carried out Tay behind. And we
Yeah,
go back to Space Saskatchewan,
space
where
Saskatchewan.
we see B2. I cried, I screamed, I yelled.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not going very well for them. They don't really know what they're supposed to be
No.
doing. Then we flip back to Coruscant, where his aide has gone back to their museum.
Yeah,
And first of all, we see Padme's headdress again.
we do. Yeah.
And I
And I feel like it's
literally
more prominent this season,
I
like
stared at
on the
that for like a
display.
solid 5 minutes. So I'm like, I was tired at the time. I'm like, I can't place where I've seen this. Like, was it the Slavers? Was it? And then I look on Twitter. I'm like, oh, it's that. And I'm just like, I'm here for this.
Yeah.
So she's trying to figure out, what is Cassian up to? Why can we not hear from
Hmm.
him?
Little does Clea know that that Cassian just had to watch the dumbest game of rock paper scissors in the galaxy. He's
I
gonna recount this
almost
tale, and Luthen and Clea are gonna be like, "What drugs are you on? Like, what did they give you? How
there's
many
two
death sticks
things.
did you take?"
There's two things I would pay for, and that is three things I would pay for. An Obi-Wan series where he's in a bar, an episode where it's just him regaling his tale of how he tried to help these dumbass rebels and they wouldn't listen to him, and just a slice of life with Cyril and Dedra, just their day-to-day just monotonous lives, where he goes in and
Just
handles fuel purity, she goes in and takes down some rebels and blows up a
yeah.
planet. Just a slice of life. I would love to see that in Star
And
Wars.
then they get to go through the "Honey, I'm Home,"
Yeah,
which is just as monotone and awkward as everything
yeah.
else about them.
And it's literally just going to be a monotone at the kitchen table. How was your day, honey? And it's going to be, oh, well, I uncovered some stolen merchandise and we fixed some fuel purity issues. What was your day? And she's gonna be like, oh, we plan to start a
But
rebellion on this planet and we are going to, just murder all the natives and potentially collapse the planet's
yeah,
core. Oh, what are you doing tonight?
yeah. I swear they would be that. I hate to say it, but they would be those children who are carrying around a doll and they are like, "This is our child." And it's the only outlet that they have, and they're really careful with this doll.
Cyril would absolutely be a cat dad.
Yeah,
Calling it right now. He'd be a cat dad.
yeah,
He
yeah,
would be the dad who he's like, I don't like this cat, but when you sneak a look at him, he's cuddling with it.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
cut back to Chandrila, where we find out that Luthen is now trying to figure out what is going on with Tay. Do we need to handle the problem?
We don't leave him
And
alone.
Mon is trying to tell him like we're going to solve this, but not now.
Yeah,
And you
we're
can
not
see
having it
that
out in the middle of this wedding.
like Mon is getting visibly frustrated with everyone pulling
Hmm.
it. She's being pulled at all sides. She's being pulled by her
Hmm.
daughter. She's being pulled by parents. She's being pulled by every single person is pulling her in a different direction.
Yeah,
So we have Perrin go
it's.
up and he gives. Honestly, I thought it was a a pretty good speech where he ends with
I think it was a good
Sagrona
speech.
Teema. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. Much as I dislike Perrin as a character, I like
yeah.
that speech. That was a good speech.
I I think that if we're looking at Perrin as a character and people really want to understand the complexities that he has, I would say it's this episode and the Mask of Fear. Because, you know, a standout line of his for me that wasn't him interacting with Mon and Tay at the same time in season one is when he's calling after her because they're planning this dinner and she's been completely blindsided by it because she's got a lot on her plate. And he calls after her, "Must everything be boring and sad?" Right. And I feel like this speech is the expansion of that. And it really leans into the way that he thinks about the galaxy around him. And it's like, to a degree, he is correct, but he's also, in his own way, complicit in what the Empire is doing because he's hanging out with, top Imperials who are at Palpatine's side
Yeah.
and working very closely with making all of this happen. And Mon is more attuned to that because she sees it on a daily basis. Perrin sees these people at parties or,
Yeah.
when they're out just hanging out in their downtime. And at the same time, like while he is complicit in that regard, I think it is important for him to be reminding Lita and the people around him, because this is part of who he is, that you have to find those moments of joy, those pockets of joy. Otherwise, like you're just going to be too like down in order to function and survive and make it through. Because it's like if you lose sight of the things that you're fighting for, which is that joy, you you're going to lose sight of the real struggle and the real fight that you're going through. And I hate to bring it up. I do think that Mon kind of echoes this in The Princess and the Scoundrel when Leia's like, we've got so much to do. Like, there's still a war going on. And she's like, no, we're taking this moment to have this wedding. We're going to send you and Han on this honeymoon to remind people of what we're fighting for. And I think that that's very interesting that Mon would carry that kind of sentiment of finding joy in the darkness and looking for that light with her.
I
And
think
if he's
that's
dead, that's how she's going to remember him, I think.
I
Because
think
that wasn't just a
what's
message for Lita. I think it was also a message for her, you know?
my prediction is, and I preface it, I have no idea what's going to happen. Do not
Mm-hmm.
have early access or any of that. My
Neither do
prediction
I.
is so not yet anyway. Someday we're
Mm-hmm.
going to get on that list, all of us.
Yeah.
My prediction is so we've got two sides of the same coin, really, where
Mm-hmm.
Mon Mothma sees the dark side of the Empire, but he only sees the propagandized version because he's hanging out at parties, he's going out drinking with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to come to a point where Mon Mothma is going to have to. We're going to get to the point where she has to flee, and it's going to catch
Mm-hmm.
him off guard. But I think when that moment comes, he's going to sacrifice himself so she can escape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my prediction of what's going to happen. I
Mm-hmm.
think he's gonna do a sacrifice moment,
Yeah.
and to kind of steal a line from The Last Jedi, it's going to be one of those: we win by protecting what we love, not fighting what we
Mm-hmm.
hate.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I do think that if Perrin were to die, it would have to be in relation to Mon's escape in one way or another, which sucks.
bonus points if he yells at the Emperor before he goes down.
I mean, there is a moment in the Mask of Fear where he does jump on a clone trooper's back because the clone trooper is pointing a blaster at Mon. And I just feel like when she's in danger, that is when his true strength comes out and we see how much he cares for her. Right. And it's, these little pockets of things. And I'm really excited to see more of the evolution of their relationship because it's not love, but there is something kind of there. And that's a good thing because they have been married for close to 3 decades. If there was only animosity in their relationship, it would feel too boomer core with the I hate my wife jokes. I don't think that Perrin hates her, and I don't think that she hates him. They just don't understand each other at this point in time.
And they probably never really had that time to get to know each other because arranged
Yeah.
marriage. It was just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're together now, deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like, it's kind of like mentioned in season one that they knew each other as children when they were in school together, but that's vastly different from being in a relationship and choosing to marry somebody. And again, if we find out that part of the reason that they were married to each other is because they are very different people and they can provide that balance for one another, it it very much is like, oh yeah, sometimes you're just too different to be adequately suited to one another, even if you have those moments where things are good between you. I think that their marriage ruined any friendship that they had.
Yeah. As in a different world, she would have been with Tay, they would have been friends,
Mm-hmm.
they would have all hung out, gone to parties together.
Exactly.
So following this, we very briefly go back to the rebels on Yavin 4,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
again, they're still, they don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We briefly see no one knows where Cassian is yet, off of
Yeah.
Yavin 4. Everyone's still trying to figure it out. And then we get to space rock, paper, scissors, which again I think is
Yeah.
just the funniest thing. This is literally what would happen in like Lord of the Flies. This is exactly what would
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And you can see they're getting so into it. They're like, 1, 2, 3, go. And
Yeah.
like they're all so into it. They're like cheering each other on. It's like this is literally a group of preteens in space.
Yeah. Even though they're clearly like adults. It's like you guys do not know what you're doing at all.
No.
And it really sucks to see that. Because the thing is, they'd probably be really great rebels if they had that leadership or if they tried to listen to Cassian.
Yeah,
Because Cassian does a good job of inspiring people. We saw it in season one, but now he's slightly out of his depth.
yeah. It's
And
like
I think
this
he's
is
going to
still new to
be,
him.
yeah,
He
I
still
think
doesn't
he's going to
know.
be very grateful further down the line when he has his weirdo group, aka Rogue One, to deal with because he's like, all of you are insane. And yet I I watched a game of rock, paper, scissors.
Decide the fate of these
So
people.
yeah,
So it's at that point where Cassian has basically had enough. He's like, you know what? I tried to help them. I'm done. We find out
yeah,
he had a blaster hidden on this, wrecked freighter.
yeah,
He distracts the guard briefly. He pulls out the blaster. He blasts off his chains and he takes the guard down and ties him up.
yeah,
He sneaks out, and as they're just having quite possibly the most exciting game of rock paper scissors in like human history, like they are all into it. This is like spectator sport level.
yeah.
He sneaks over to his TIE Avenger, and he takes off, and they're all just like, "What?
Oh
Wait,
no.
what?"
Well,
And
he's gone.
it's like,
He's
"What did we
gone.
do?"
Got a rock, paper, scissors about it again.
And we never do find out, what happened to his pilot. Did they kill him, or did a
Yeah,
monster take him?
yeah,
You briefly see like the Great Temple, and you realize that it is Yavin 4, which
yeah,
I didn't catch
yeah,
at the time. I saw that on Twitter after, and I'm like,
yeah,
how did I not notice that big ass temple right there? I think I looked away
yeah,
for 2 seconds.
yeah.
And I think that
I,
we are going to end up seeing this is, how we're going to find Yavin 4. He's going to bring that back.
yeah,
And they're
yeah.
going to realize, this is a good place. So I'm kind of hoping we'll see more of the Great Temple.
Yeah.
One
And
of,
I think that when the rebels arrive to set up base on Yavin 4, I think it would be funny if the Maya Pay Brigade was still there, just rock, paper, scissors.
yeah, just
And
walk up.
Mom's just like, these people need leadership, Cassie. And he's going to be like, do you think I didn't try?
Honestly, even better if, like, at the very last arc, of like 3 years down the road, Cassian comes
Yeah.
back with them. They're still there, and he's like, "Should have listened to me."
Yeah, you should have listened to me. He's like, my leader is not a big fan of rock, paper, scissors. If you guys want a smash ball tournament about it, she'd be thrilled. Because we don't get the holonet out here. And
No, we're
she's missing
gonna
the O-ring tournament.
we're gonna go legend style. We're gonna have a Coruscant shockball tournament, and that's gonna
Oh
decide,
yeah.
how this goes. It's gonna be Palpatine
Yeah.
versus Mothma, winner take all.
And we know Mon has a history of being a jock when she was a teenager.
Yeah.
Just terrifying. Thank you, Alexander Freed, for Jock Mon Mothma. It has fueled what I like to refer to as my Smashball romance fan fiction, where Tay, I kid you not, is a cheerleader. Uh,
I love this already. Okay, so we got to get Alexander Freed on again at some point. It's been a good couple,
wonderful.
I guess, a couple of years since I last had an interview with him. I think
Yeah.
it's time we bring him back and we just talk about shockball.
Yeah. So real.
Shockball versus rock paper scissors. What's it going to be?
Yeah. Which is better?
You know what? We'll put out a Twitter poll. We'll see what's it going to be:
Yeah.
space rock paper scissors or Coruscant shockball. No
Real.
context, just which is it going
Yeah.
to be? And then that takes us
Uh,
to the
yeah.
end of
Mom's vote
episode
is
2.
for Shockball. So
So then we come to the end of episode 2, which just leaves us with more questions than answers. But I'm liking the pacing.
yeah, I like that it's very fast. Because I was expecting it to be very fast. And Tony was saying, I can't remember if it was the live stage or actually when he was like when they were doing the interview before they showed us the first episode. But he's like, we're only there in this year for like 2 or 3 days. So we had to pick like 2 to 3 days that were the most important for these characters. And looking at it, yeah, I can see how each and every one of these characters is having that stretch of time that is probably the most important thing that will happen to them all year that informs their rebellion, right? We've got the Ferrex gang in Space Saskatchewan, basically having to, I mean, they lose Brasso, And then like a
I
spoiler alert
I
for season for episode three.
I literally like I sat up and I was like, no.
No.
I was not
So
okay, especially when
yeah.
I saw someone on Twitter post out that like B2 is gonna roll up because they had to leave his body. He's gonna be like, Brasso, wake up. Brasso, we need to find Cass. And like I read this and I'm like, I'm not okay.
Not okay.
Because like they
Um,
left B2 behind.
yeah. I was saying I was like I'd rather never see B2 again than risk B2 dying.
We
Keep
know
that
he's
baby
safe
safe.
there.
Exactly. Right. So they're down Brasso now and they've had to flee a place that was becoming their home. Mon is reliving her wedding trauma, which is a weird type of trauma to have. And going through all of that. And then Cassian is experiencing, oh crap, not all the rebels are as smart as the ones I've been meeting, and I'm sat here watching them play rock, paper, scissors. And like Dedra and Cyril are going through what is probably ultimately going to lead them both to Gorman, right? When you take into account, like, oh, Dedra's going to be on Gorman, she's probably going to bring Cyril with her,
Yeah.
right? And it's
I'm
not going to
almost
end
wondering.
well.
I think that again, my prediction is going to be. I think Dedra's going to have a moment of reckoning where she realizes, this isn't what I want. This is what I was
Mm-hmm,
raised to believe, but I don't think this is what I want.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
I think Cyril, with his, overwhelming sense of duty, is going to be like, no, it's our duty to be here. And I think that's going to cause a
mm-hmm.
fight.
Yeah. I I want Dedra to survive. I want her to be part of that power vacuum.
Yeah.
It like following the Death Star because I think that that would be so good for her.
Yeah.
Um,
She can take over
suddenly
in place
she's
of Colonel Ular. She can take over for Yularen after he
exactly,
explodes.
exactly. And wouldn't that be just perfect for her? Cyril wouldn't need to go work at the Bureau of Standards anymore and fuel purity. He can be the stay-at-home little trad husband that he wants to, the little trad male wife that he wants to be. I was not expecting Cyril Karn trad wife in season 2 of Andor,
I'm
but I'm
here for
glad that
it.
I got it.
I'm here for it.
Um,
Episode
I
three,
was,
like episode three, we get I think my favorite moment ever, where he just gets like overwhelmed with like his social battery
yeah,
dies, and he just goes and he
yeah,
just like flops on the bed. I'm like,
real.
wow, we can all relate to this. This
We
is
can all relate to this. Cyril is unfortunately one of the most relatable characters in this show,
yeah.
but we don't like him because he holds up a mirror and shows us the worst things about ourselves. I, just like us, he is a Cassian fan. He just wants to see Cassian Andor again, and I can't fault him for that. He
He's still
also thinks
trying to solve
Dedra's
that murder.
pretty. He
Yeah.
also thinks Dedra's pretty, and don't we all? Because Denise
We
Goff is
we got the
stunningly
like
beautiful.
I'm glad that they resolved his kind of creepy stalker issues that he had in the first
Yeah,
season. Because like it was a little much there, my guy. Like,
yeah. I was like,
tone
it's
it
too
back
much.
there. Tone back the
I'm
creep
like,
level.
I'm like, you're coming off a little bit too strong. But now they live together in sin, and they're not good at it.
You know what? They just lived happily ever after, and they nothing bad ever happens to them. They just
That's
live happily
true.
ever after.
Exactly.
They go shopping at the grocery store together.
Yeah,
They bicker about whether to get name
yeah,
brand or
yeah,
cheaper foods.
yeah,
They argue about who's going to get the mail. It's just going to be that. It's going to be a traditional thing.
yeah. Cyril has to figure out how to deal with his mom, and it's not going to go well, but he's going to try. And yeah, it's going to be great. Nothing bad will ever happen to them. They're just playing house.
Just a few more days, we'll find out.
Krennic shows up at their door and he's like, playing house, Dedra? Really? Woman of
Playing
your talents?
playing
And she's
house,
like,
playing
it's a
house.
peaceful life.
Really, none of your
It's just
talents.
like, it's lonely, I imagine. She's like, since Cyril died. Yes. And then Cyril comes out in his little apron and he's like, oh, Cyril's back from the dead. It's a miracle.
I'm here
And
for
Krennic
this.
thinks that they have a real child, but it's actually just a cat. And
It's you know what I want to see. We're gonna throw some comedy. We're gonna go Simpsons style, where it's like the kitchen's on fire. Krennic walks in. What's that light back there? Oh, it's nothing. Okay, so we just need a Coruscant sitcom is what we need. That's all we
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming up on the
Yeah.
time mark, so that takes us
Yeah.
to the end of the episode. Ash, thank you for joining.
No
Well,
worries. Thank
for
you.
joining me. I think we lost Jace. I believe that she is probably passed out. It has been a long day, but thank you for joining us. It was
Of
fantastic
course.
having you, and I believe
Yeah.
we had you on for another episode later down the road. So we'll do this
I think
again.
so. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll absolutely do this
See
again. And
you.
you know what? Maybe after the season, we'll get a roundtable together.
Yes. With Genevieve.
Yes. If I can find her PR person, I will try. But yes, Ash, thank
Please.
you for
I wish I
joining
was
us.
that PR person.
It has
I
been
would
such a
be
pleasure
so
having
good at
you.
it. Thank you.